Thank you very much, Alessandro. Thank you very much for inviting me. It's an honor to speak on this panel today. My name is Mariam Claren. I'm the founder of the Free Nahid campaign and the daughter of political prisoner Nahid Taghavi. Today, I would like to give you an overview how when a political prisoner gets detained, what happens to this person and which procedure the person has to go through, and how this detention of my mother compelled me to become a campaigner for not only for her, but also for all political prisoners. And I need to mention that I was not a political activist before my mother was taken. Nahid Taghavi is 67 years old. She's a left-minded woman and labor rights activist. Therefore, she is imprisoned since 603 days. My mom used to travel to Tehran, from Germany to Tehran many times. And when she was in Tehran, that's the capital city of Iran, we used to talk every day on the phone. And then on October 16, 2020, she suddenly disappeared. My uncles, they live in Iran, went to her apartment, and inside it was like a crime scene. Carpet ripped up from the floorboards, pillows ripped open, books scattered everywhere. So we found out that she was arrested by the intelligence wing of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. You might say that the Revolutionary Guard are something like the deep state in the Islamic Republic of Iran. They dominate Iran's politics as well as its economy, military, and intelligence agencies. So they arrested her and they brought her to the Evin prison. Evin prison is a very infamous prison in Iran, which is notorious for detention of political prisoners and is known for mass executions and torture. The massacre of the summer of 1988, where thousands of political prisoners were extrajudicially killed, murdered by the Islamic Republic of Iran. A lot of them were killed in Evin prison. So they brought my mom to Evin prison, and we did not hear from her anymore. And it took us 12 days. We finally got a call. She called her brother, my uncle from Evin prison, and only said that she's there and that she's alive. And this was it, and we did not hear from her again for about 2 months. In Evin prison, my mother spent 194 days in solitary confinement and was interrogated 80 times for a total of 1,000 hours, all without legal counsel. Cameras monitored her 24/7, even when she used the bathroom. She was blindfolded every time when she left her tiny cell for interrogation. And she was forced to sleep on a hard floor without pillows. And this is important to know that this kind of so-called white torture in solitary confinement is used to break the prisoner. As Hadi Qaimi said, they want the prisoner to confess, to say something in front of cameras, which they wanted them to say, or to sign something, which that they want them to sign, forced confessions. And all the structure in these isolation sections, in this solitary confinement, is made to break you. I highly recommend to read the book of Narges Mohammadi, the famous human rights activist. The book will be released, I think, in December. It's called White Torture, and she did a very good analyze about the structure of solitary confinement and how people are getting tortured in these torture chambers. 6 months after my mom's detention, it was April 2021, she was brought to court. There she met her lawyer for the very first time, and the lawyer was only allowed to see the papers of the court 4 days earlier. Her lawyer was Mustafa Nili, who is a very famous human rights lawyer in Iran. He was arrested last year himself and is now waiting for his sentence, only for defending people. My mom had 2 short court sessions, one in April 2021 and one in June 2021. And in August 2021, she was sentenced to 10 years and 8 years in prison for running an illegal group to disrupt national security. The group is the Communist Party of Iran, Marxist-Leninist Maoist, and the second charge is propaganda against the state. My mother denied both charges. She was sentenced along with 3 other prisoners named Mehran Raouf, Bahare Soleimani, and Somaye Kargar. These people get very high sentences too. So, in fact, the Islamic Republic of Iran has criminalized thinking, speech, and oppositional beliefs. That's why they tried them on trump-up charges. That's why the trial was a sham, conducted behind closed doors and with no real opportunity to present any defense. The prisoners were even not allowed to talk at their court. And I think Mehran Raouf, the one who was in my mom's case, even did not ever see his lawyer, only at the court, and he was all the time during the court process in solitary confinement. I think Sattar will tell us more about Mehran's case later. But what I have learned from my mom is that resistance and speaking out against this injustice is the only way to stay against this cruelty. So I decided to go public with her case soon after her arrest. She was taken in October 16, and the first time I went public with her case was October 20, so 4 days after her arrest. I created the Free Nahid campaign on social media. I started giving interviews to German and international media. I began working with NGOs like Amnesty International, like the Center of Human Rights in Iran, with the organizations like the Burn the Cage movement in Europe, but also with the international emergency campaign, and as well with all the other families whose loved ones are currently held in the prisons of the Islamic Republic of Iran. Since then, I also have lobbied on her behalf with German politicians, not only because she's a German citizen, but also to make them more aware of the intense repression faced by the people of Iran. Usually, unfortunately, the Western governments turn a blind eye because business with Iran is more important to them. 2 months after my mother's arrest, when she was still in solitary confinement and under interrogation and isolated from the whole world, more than 200 people gathered in front of the Iranian embassy in Germany and demanded her freedom. And I can remember on her first court session date, it was April 28, 2021, I talked to her in the morning and I told her she and the others should imagine thousands of people in the courtroom standing next to them and demanding their freedom. And this is a very important thing. The prisoners need to know that they are not alone, that people outside are demanding for their release, that people around the world are caring. And this is so important to the prisoners. But as Hadi also described in his speech, the case of Nahi Taghavi is not an exception. The prisons of the Islamic Republic of Iran are full of people like my mother. We have lawyers, poets, filmmakers, environmentalists. Can you imagine people who are caring for climate, for fauna, for animals are getting detained in the Islamic Republic of Iran. There are currently 7 environmentalist activists in Evin prison. And human rights activists like Narges Mohammadi, women rights activists, and so on and so on. And it's very important to recognize that these people are only behind bars because they spoke up against injustice, because they wanted a better world, they wanted a better place to live. And this is the reason why they are now in prison, and they deserve awards, not to be behind bars. And our fight and our solidarity is so important to the prisoners. That's what I mentioned a few lines ago. Going public with the cases of the prisoners helps to protect the prisoners, because when the interrogators and the authorities recognize that people are caring for these detainees, they get better treatment, they get medical treatment. They cannot do with them what they want to do. They cannot torture them physically because all eyes are on them and people are watching. So it's very, very important. And I emphasize always every family member to go public with the case of a imprisoned loved one. And the experience has taught me that the more people care about these prisoners, sign petitions, complain, protest, someday the right people will also care and we will get them free. So I really would like to encourage you to join our fight, to go to the site of the International Emergency Appeal, sign the emergency appeal, find the newsletter of the Center of Human Rights in Iran. You get a very, very good overview when something happens in Iran. You can follow my campaign always under the hashtag #FreeNahid on every social media account, on Facebook, on Twitter. And I really, really ask you to don't let the prisoners alone, be their voice. The prisoners are so resistant and they count on us. Thank you very much.